Yeah, so I'd say two things about that. Again, let's start with the revenue one. There's always been a lot of conversation about the revenue associated with both recreational marijuana as well as casinos. And people have sort of, and partisans who support both of those things always made the argument that, you know, a big part of the reason why we should get into these businesses was because they would generate revenue. And I've been pretty consistent in my response to that by saying that while the incremental revenue associated with those enterprises is important, it isn't really all that significant in the grand scheme of a $27 billion revenue base, tax revenue base, and another $15 billion federal reimbursement revenue base. The fact that we have 200,000 more people working today than when we took office, and we have more people working than any time in state history, and that we've seen real personal income growth for the past 4 years, that has so much more to do with what happens to tax revenue in Massachusetts than what will come from casino revenue or from recreational marijuana revenue over time. The quality of our tax base is going to be driven by the quality of our economy, period. And I think people are making a mistake if they focus on some of this ancillary stuff and give it more credit than it deserves in the grand scheme of what's going on generally with the economy in Massachusetts. I'm one of these guys who basically thinks I root for every business in Massachusetts to do well, right? Because that means it employs people, and those employed people can pay their rent and their mortgage and feed their families and feel positive about their future. That's the way I think about this. And I think I think picking one sector and saying, you know, their revenue base is more important than somebody else's, I don't know. I think that's, in an economy as diversified and as big as ours, I don't think that's the right way to think about it. The other thing I would say is that the legislature and the ballot question both wanted to set up an independent commission that would be sort of separate and apart from guys like me. And I think they are, for the most part, trying to be, this isn't in my wheelhouse, it's not right in my line of vision, so I'm not that close to it. So I'm going to say that in advance. But I think they are trying to learn from some of the lessons of the rollouts in other states and are therefore being careful about how they do some of this stuff. Because the one lesson that I heard from the governors and the folks in other states that were early to recreational marijuana is you don't get a second chance. If you make a mistake with respect to the rollout, it's almost impossible to change whatever it is you've done later on. And I think the commission took that to heart, and they're trying to make sure that as they do this, they quote unquote sort of get it right and learn from the experience that Colorado, Washington, Nevada, and some of these other states had. And I think that's probably a good thing.